Joined, as always, by my friends, the man, the myth, the legend, Lawrence Sutton, and the Giles County Rattlesnake, Chris Morris. And we've got a special guest today, our state senator, Page Walley. Hello, sir.
Hey, Kip and Rattlesnake and Legend. Good to be with y'all.
Yes, sir.
Come up with something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Hey, just great to have you. And hey,
Thank you,
hello
Chris.
to everyone. And
Hello.
right off the bat, shout out to Strikers.
Shout out to Striker Steakhouse, baby. We just had a good little meal there.
I'm about to say, it looks like you guys went to Strikers.
Yeah, we got a
did.
little
I
something.
You still got it
yeah.
on your collar, too, there.
Yeah,
huh?
I got a little something going there. I don't know what it is, but it was good. It was fantastic.
He had that buffalo salad.
Yeah, I had the
Oh,
buffalo
yeah.
chicken salad.
Nice.
We couldn't see it in his beard. Man,
Yeah.
could we?
That's
Because
right.
That's
No.
red, you know.
It's authentic.
going
That's
Yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
like
Hey, I'm going to
Strikers.
tell you that fish and chips is great.
Yes, sir.
It's almost good as Haggis.
And that's hard to top, but I'll take your word for it. I like Strikers. I usually just get something with beef in it.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
You can't beat that. Absolutely can't beat that. Shout out to Strikers. Great food, great service. Go get you something for your family. I know it's raining outside. Thank the good Lord for some rain. Right
We
off
need
the
it.
top.
We need it.
duck
get you
hunters are
something.
talking about that today where I was.
That's right. That's right.
Uh-oh.
Needing some rain.
Yeah. So, fellas, what you got? What you got going today? Anything going there, Chris?
Well, first
Lawrence?
of all, hello to everybody.
Yeah.
It's great
hello.
to see
Yeah.
everybody. Kip and I came in here on two wheels.
We did.
So
We did.
Well,
we're
me,
cutting it close.
me and Paige were the adults in the room. We were here on time.
Laura was giving us our preparations here, so she's running the media center for us.
Absolutely.
You're a 12-year-old producer. How about that?
No, she's 13 now.
13
She
now.
She turned 13 last week.
She knows more than all of us about how
exactly
technology works. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, she does.
Got that done got into those teenage years. Look out now. You got
That's
those
right.
twins.
Yeah,
So
y'all pray for
look out.
Lawrence now,
Pray
please.
for Lawrence.
Why?
Yeah.
Lawrence.
Why you got to pray for
Well,
me?
you need prayer. I think we all need it. don't
Well, I know we need prayer, but why, I mean, I got good girls.
we? Oh, you
so-
do? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but
I agree
you'll
with
have
that
to
100%.
start beating the boys back
Yeah,
pretty soon when they come
yeah.
knocking on the door.
I figure I shoot the first one and the word gets out.
That's right. That's right. So you got your shotgun loaded, right?
Yes, that's right. I shoot the first one, word gets out, and I got some land, and I got friends with some machinery.
Backhoe, huh? There
yeah,
you go.
backhoe. Yeah.
I was just thinking it's a pleasure to have you in the house. You buffer up against our senatorial district, Joey Hensley.
You bet.
So I just figure if we each rotate a question, you start out, and
Well,
then
let
we'll work
Lawrence
our way
start out because
around.
I don't have it. Go ahead, Lawrence.
All right, I can do that. So, here's my first question for you. What are some ways we can deal with crime escalation in Tennessee, particularly in the larger cities?
That's a great question. And I tell you what, between us working in Nashville and me representing the county adjacent to Shelby County in Memphis, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Folks are scared to death about a lot of the crime spilling out into some of our rural counties, like
Sure.
over in Fayette and Haywood on the west side of our Senate district. And so, I think there's even one person even asked me, and I'm exploring it right now, about using deadly force when someone is trespassing on your property and you're under, the impression that they're going to. Texas has this apparently. They're trying to break into your house.
Yeah.
Break into buildings on your property. That if you feel like your life and well-being is threatened. But I think there's a few things we can do. In my mind, one of them is, and we talked. We had a lot of conversation during the special session about crime.
Yes, we did.
And we're going to have it again. And we're going to make sure we take care and protect Second Amendment rights of law-abiding gun owners. But for those people that are out there committing crimes with guns, we're pretty soft on them here in Tennessee, I think.
I think we are soft on crime a
You
lot.
talking about maybe stolen guns?
Stolen guns, their own guns, I don't care what it is, but one of the things that the federal government does, and of all places, you'll be amazed at this, California does, and I was just out there last week asking questions, is they have a law that if you commit a crime with a firearm, you're going to jail, no questions asked, for 5 years just because you were using a firearm.
Yeah.
What about if you are like a lot of our crime is, as you know, is caused by drugs.
Right.
What about these drug dealers though that have a gun? They're in commission of committing a crime because they're selling drugs. Would that be considered that then? Because I'm going to tell you that would do a lot. And I actually heard someone tell me this. Now, it came from California, and I told him that didn't count. Coming from California, I don't care what California did. But he was talking about that the drug dealers there in California, they wouldn't even carry a gun because of what California would do with strict gun laws if you were selling drugs and you had a gun.
Yeah. And I think that'd be worth exploring too. I had not really thought much about that because most of what I've been running into and people talking to me about has to do with carjackings, and just stick-ups and those kind of things. Sure. And what happens is they plea bargain their way down or out, and the gun becomes really kind of inconsequential. So they get tried for the crime of carjacking, but not having the gun. It doesn't matter they had the gun or not. The federal folks, and I had a guy that is a former deputy sheriff there in Shelby County, lives out in Fayette County, and then he served as a marshal in the U.S. Marshal Service. He told me, I guarantee you that you can impact crime in a hurry if these thugs understand that if they get caught with a gun committing a crime, no questions asked, going to jail, no plea bargain, nothing.
Well, see, and that was my point, with the selling of drugs and everything else, and people they're going to carjack you and stuff like that. I want to go back to what you said, that they're looking at if someone is on your property and your life's at threatened. I always thought that Tennessee already had the castle doctrine, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're standing your ground, I think.
Yeah, I had understood
I think we are.
like that, but that it was kind of, they had to be in your house, not in your yard, kind of not on your porch, not. And I don't know. There might be some nuance about that. I've got to study that more.
Yeah. We really need to know that because, if somebody comes up on my porch with the intent to do harm, I'm going to try to do the harm first.
Sure, absolutely. And you should.
And I always have heard shoot them and drag them in.
Right.
If they fall outside, drag them inside.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, on a carjack. Somebody came and carjacked me, I'm dragging him in with me.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all, I've got a shocker for you. Talked to a Memphis PD this morning. Got a good friend over there that's a cop in Memphis. Good fella. And he is on the Democrat side. Don't make him a bad fella.
No.
But he is beginning to talk. Do you know Terry Rowland that's on the SCC?
Yeah, I've met
okay.
Terry.
He's beginning to communicate with Terry. He's communicating with me, and he's trying to find some common ground. And I said, well, listen, you got your state rep, Pearson, and he thought, oh, Lord. He said, that boy's a mess. He said, I ain't for anybody wanting to defund the police. Mm-hmm. I said, well, maybe you're not a Democrat.
You know what?
But let me tell you what happened. With all this flash mobs and all this crap going on, and I know one of the state senators has written a letter asking for the National Guard, for Governor Lee to consider the Guard to be sent to Shelby.
Senator Taylor in Memphis, in Germantown.
Gotcha.
Well, when that was happening, they were looting that FedEx truck on the interstate. Mm-hmm. Guess whose mother was behind the FedEx truck?
Oh, yeah.
Justin Pearson. And he said, he may be having a change of heart because she's absolutely scared to death. Mm-hmm. This changed perspective. The old saying is, we talk about things. I had a sister, Page, that died with an aneurysm at 18. And, we don't pay attention to aneurysms. I was 21 when she passed away. But when after her death, and she had this to occur while driving, and once everything came out, and she lived 2 days after the wreck, she had a bad head-on collision. And then I paid more attention to aneurysms, okay? And same thing, now that this has happened with Justin Pierce's mom, it can have a change of heart quick.
Oh, yeah.
So, rude awakening.
Yeah, they're not immune. The Democrats that are being victimized in Shelby County like the Republicans are, and
Well,
they got to wake up and understand that.
I keep telling everybody, if you want to decide what you are, go read the Republican platform, go read the Democratic platform. And if you can't figure out what you are at that point, then I'll use Chris's saying, you might be a trans politician at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Trans Republican.
Yeah, trans Republican. I'm going to say politician. You can't figure out what you are, then. But I'm going to tell you, me personally, if I, when you go read both of the platforms, if you can't figure out what you are, then, you better hit your knees and start praying at that point.
That's exactly right.
Because it is two totally separate.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's created this huge divide in our country.
Sure.
Hopefully it hasn't gotten as bad in our state, but definitely in our country. It's created huge divides.
Yeah.
One of the things I've really been encouraged by in the last month and a half is the exposure of some of these lunatics on our college campuses that are pro-Hamas,
Sure.
pro-Palestinians, and even now some Democrats, some very liberal folks are realizing, hey, wait a minute, look what we've allowed to happen, with this Marxism infiltrating, our educational system. And these folks are anti-Semites.
Yeah.
My grandmother was Jewish, came over here, her family escaping Tsarist persecution in Russia back in the late 1890s.
Correct. That's correct.
And, it's stunning to see what's been allowed to go on in, the university campuses. I was so proud of that executive up at Harvard that said, I want the names of these kids because we're going to make sure that they're blackballed and not getting jobs at any of our firms if this is how they think, if this is the hate they hold in their heart.
Yeah.
But they're learning it on the college campuses.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's being tolerated.
It's being taught on the college campuses.
In our school system, public school system.
It has. But I'm going to blame the colleges more than anything, and I'm going to tell you why I blame the colleges more than anything, is one of the BARDA that does the, what is it called when they do the, trying to see who's going to win the elections and stuff.
I like the polling stuff.
The polling, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so BARDA did a polling, and it looked at Christian children that went off to college. And 80% of Christian children that went off to college came out of college atheist or something else. So I'm just going to tell you, I look at that as being where a lot of this cesspool of thought process is happening in these colleges. I saw another thing out of Columbia University. Over 100 professors in Columbia University is going against Israel and calling for the destruction of Israel. Not just saying stop fighting. They're calling for the destruction of Israel. And I'm going to tell you something. I look at the Bible first, and God was very plain in Genesis chapter 16 where he told Abraham, I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse those that curse you. And I'm seeing this stuff happening, and it's just like
they're inviting curses and destruction on themselves because of disobedience to that. And I tell you, it is. I think exactly right that we've seen that. My wife went to Auburn University back in the early 1980s. Oh. And listen, she had a religion professor, who began to kind of mock the beliefs. This is back, when you didn't think this was going on.
In the 80s.
And it really rocked her world.
Yeah.
And put them on the defensive. And I get it, college, I think you're supposed to learn to think and defend your beliefs, but you're not supposed to be attacked for your beliefs. You're supposed to learn, how to debate and defend. And we have allowed our universities to be a breeding ground for anti-Americanism, pro-Marxism, and then the teachers that work their way down into high schools and teach. What do you think they're going to teach? So we got to be very vigilant about that.
That's exactly right.
And that's the first thing that they do. Is kind of funny. The first thing that the left does, if they don't get their way, they call us Marxists and fascists.
Right. And they're the ones that are so hate-filled. And it's funny, during this time when they're being called out now for being pro-Hamas and the horrific, violations of just humanity that we saw, they're saying, well, why, just tolerate our beliefs. We ought to be able to say what we think, but they won't let Christians, they won't
Sure.
let Republicans, they won't
Yeah.
let conservatives have that same deference on college campuses. They want to.
Oh, they'll come and attack
They
you.
will attack you. They will, quarantine you. They will cancel you.
Yes.
But they don't want their beliefs canceled. But thank goodness people are saying, wait a minute, look what we've allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And the lunacy that is on these campuses that we gotta get some better control over. And I'm really, so that encourages me a little bit that they've been called out.
Sure, absolutely, and I never thought we would be in a point, and especially in the country where it would ever be popular to be pro-Hamas. I mean, I felt like that was kind of, I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but
I know this has crossed, but all of us is mind.
Oh yeah, it's
These people, you've seen what they did in D.C. at the
Yeah.
Democrat headquarters up there.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen what they did at the White House, trying to climb the fence and the destruction of statues, all this crap
saw,
they were doing. But at the end of the day, how many of them are legal?
you don't know.
We don't know.
Right. I saw a video on social media of a guy in New York that was putting up posters for his cousin in Israel. That was just kind of like raising awareness. Hey, if you know anybody in Israel, spread this picture along. We can't find her, this, that, and whatever. And he was actually recording live, and a pro-Hamas protester was coming down behind him and ripping the posters down.
Right.
And he went up to him and was like, "You don't understand. Like, this is not any kind of propaganda. Like, this is my literal cousin, and we don't know where she is, and I'm trying to kind of, just do whatever I can here to help."
Right.
And they were calling him all kind of names under the sun, Jewish derogatory names, and it's polarized. And I never thought we would get there. But anyway, Paige, let's talk about mental health for a little bit. I know we talked about that a lot in the special session, and we got some different stuff coming up next year. But there's obviously a direct correlation between mental health and our communities, and then mental health aspects toward the school system and kind of how that all works. I know you got a background in that. So, what do you think that we can do better as a state, kind of geared toward the mental health side of moving forward?
Well, there's some things I know,
question.
and I know we talked about them some during the special session, but just, thought differently. I say Senate and House thought differently about how to best approach it during the special session. So, first of all, I think that we've got to make sure that places like Centerstone here in Lawrence County and our state psychiatric hospitals are staffed fully. We let that dwindle. And it's hard finding people that want to work doing hard jobs now.
Yeah.
And so we've put more resources into them. We ought to be able to now have the incentives to hire and retain these workers in both locations. One of the things I think that we can do is, and I've got a son who is over in East Tennessee in Anderson County, is the head of the kind of the counseling services for their school system.
Okay.
And he sees this all the time, these kids that are come from abusive homes, drugs being sold.
Single parent homes.
Yeah, lots of struggles, and trying to prop them up, trying to keep them from hurting themselves.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess eventually from hurting other people. And that's finding it early and getting these kids that are being bullied or feeling just isolated, and then they act out later. Like I think we've seen these backgrounds of people that commit these heinous kinds of murders, like up at Covenant School, and see the lunacy that the background they came out of. But I think having access to these kinds of counselors, because the teachers don't have time, but to get them referred to them, and at the same time being very careful that these are qualified, licensed mental health professionals. They're not someone with a political agenda that just says, well, if you come from a home that believes this, then there's something wrong with you. One of the things that I've got some legislation I had during the special session, but it was ruled kind of outside the call, that I think is important, is for communities to know, and particularly law enforcement to know who those people are with the serious mental illnesses that might have had some issues related to danger to self and others, so that we can protect the community, protect them, And one of the things that this legislation would do is that if in Bolivar in our district, we have one of the large state psychiatric hospitals.
Yep.
If a person from Lawrence County was involuntarily committed in Bolivar to the hospital, the current law requires local law enforcement be informed. Now, local law enforcement, in the eyes of our Department of Mental Health, is local law enforcement where the hospital is, not where the patient came from.
Gotcha.
So the folks here in Lawrence County wouldn't necessarily know. This would require them to be informed, the courts and the law enforcement, just when the person is admitted and discharged, so they're aware.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing, but it's not a simple thing. And
Sure.
I talked to the Commissioner of Mental Health, and she said, wow, I didn't realize we even did that. I thought it was information being provided where the person lived, not where they were being, served in the hospital. So that's one thing I think it's really important that we do. I think with the alcohol and drug programs we already have, we've got to continue to, resource them. More money is not the only answer, but it is sure part of an answer. You can't hire people to do the work without hiring people to do the work.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think that's another thing we've done, and we've done a pretty good job of that. But there's I think there are additional opportunities that we can take as a legislative body to say, all right, we're going to make sure our community mental health centers are staffed. We're going to make sure, and I think one of the things that was proposed maybe last year, I don't think we had the resources to fund it, was make sure every public school system had some kind of a program or professional that they could refer their kids to if need be.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think we've got to do that, because I hate to say it, but you look at the data about the numbers of people who are, diagnosed or struggling with severe, persistent mental illness, anxiety, depression. It's substantial, and it goes beyond just the, folks that are down about some transient situation. It's a pretty serious deal. But if we can get upstream with that, and intervene with that, I think we improve the probability of preventing maybe some worse outcomes later on.
And there's a couple things there too that I think, obviously I've talked to both our sheriff, well, really all four of my sheriffs and two of yours, different districts folks. That's why I said that I wasn't being exclusive. But the mental health transport side of it right now, the way it sits, and me and Representative Doggett, shout out Clay Doggett, have talked about this. Right now, the way it sits, Shane Fisher in Wayne County, shout out to Shane Fisher. Right now, the way it sits is in Lawrence County, if we have a mental health call where an inmate from Lawrence County Jail has got to go to Bolivar, right? That's the straight shot. They got to go. To my understanding, what I've been told by these law enforcement individuals is that they take the call, then there's a deputy, one of the sheriff's deputies has to leave Lawrence County in some kind of transport vehicle, whatever. So that takes them out for a whole shift. And to my understanding, and Senator, please correct me at any point in time because this is not my wheelhouse, they have to transport them to Bolivar. Bolivar only takes them overnight if it's extreme circumstances. So then they have to leave. They have to wait for a mental evaluation, which could take 2 hours. And then they have to bring them back after they get the mental evaluation, unless it's determined by the hospital that they need to stay overnight. So I guess what I'm trying to get to, and I was talking to Shane Fisher, Sheriff Fisher from Wayne County about this, was that the expense load that rides from Lawrence County, Wayne County, and these other counties that have to take them to Bolivar, and then the time off, because, I mean, you look at one shift as far as sheriff's deputies go, we might only have 3 or 4 in the county at once. So that takes them, that's an all-day deal there.
Yeah.
So I would certainly be interested in looking at and working with you and Clay and some of the others, just to kind of figure out what we can do to kind of better prop up our local authorities in a situation, and maybe I don't know if a third-party organization would be the best way to deal with that. I don't know what the answer is, but I think finding another way to transport them that doesn't take deputies and cost to the county would be beneficial in that avenue, obviously, because that's costly and it takes all day. I mean, it takes a deputy all day
For
to get
the
over there.
listeners out there, for you and Paige,
Yeah.
Does the deputy have to stay if they keep them overnight?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But they got to go home
No.
and come back.
But they got to go home and come back.
And there was a situation, from what I understand, is that there has been a time where an inmate has actually escaped the van, and then now you've got a whole nother situation where you've got a Lawrence County deputy or Wayne County, I'm not going to say which department it was, ex-deputy has to then subdue an inmate 4 counties over, by themselves while they're calling for radio backup. So there's just a whole lot of problems that go with
There's
that.
a lot of complexity.
As well.
You're right, Kip. And one of the things that I'm going to say this, we have allowed to happen is so many of our county jails are really mental health treatment centers. And
You're exactly right.
And it's so difficult to get these folks served, get the right medication. And then when there are crises and they have to transport, as you say, a county like Wayne, one of the largest geographic counties in the state, has just probably 2 or 3 deputies on duty at night. You take one out and you put them on the road, traveling, 75 miles or whatever to get over.
It's a long way.
That's a strain on taxpayers, and I don't think it's fair to, the primary responsibility of these sheriff's deputies. So you're right. We've tried to get additional resources into these county jails to help because it's just not right what we do.
Sure. Well,
it's just not right.
And another avenue of that, too, that I just jogged my memory on it was I was talking to one of our county sheriffs, and he said that there was an inmate that they had in 1 week that had to go to Bolivar 3 different times.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 different times in 1 week for one inmate. So that was, I think he told me the bill at the end of it was like $45,000 for one inmate, which is
and most
nuts.
Like $10,000 or $15,000 a day.
Yeah. And most of these psychiatric our psychiatric hospitals, they are not
Health
going
costs
to,
too.
Yeah, they're not
that's
going
including
to
the hospital
They're
stuff,
not going to admit you unless you really what they consider a clear and imminent danger immediately to yourself or others and can't be maintained on medication or some other way. So you aren't going to be there long. And it is a system. And
Very serious.
I have been talking with Marie Williams, who is our wonderful commissioner of mental health and substance abuse disorders, about some solutions for this. And, it's I hate to say it, we don't have a lot of problems that money won't solve. So if you can invest enough in it, and get the resources upstream back at the jails,
it helps,
the transportation services. I was working today, and Southwest Human Resource Agency, I think South Central Human Resource Agency here is having the same problem. Is we pay them, we being through the Department of Transportation, pay them for transportation services to getting our elderly to physicians and their appointments and that kind of thing. Well, TDOT's behind paying them right now, and they're being stressed. But that kind of a system that does transport, and Mike could do it securely, would be a good, a good supplement to what they're doing to try to help, Sheriff Fisher, Sheriff Myers, whomever needs that help. Yeah. Because it's just, we shouldn't ask them to run mental health hospitals.
Yeah, and
you're looking at the development districts, and we've got 9 development districts across the state, right?
Well, and I was thinking that the HRAs, the Human Resource Agencies, but it might be 9 of them too. I can't remember.
I think that's right. I think that's correct.
But that's a good idea. Now I got a question when y'all are talking about this.
Yeah.
I know, like in some counties, they have what's called transport officers who just transport people back and forth to the judicial system.
Right. Yeah.
Are the transport officers allowed? It has to be a deputy that carries them.
That's right.
If they leave Lawrence County Jail, they've got to be transported by a sheriff's deputy from Lawrence County Jail to Bolivar, and then they got to hang out. The deputy has to hang out at Bolivar, not knowing if they're going to bring them back or not. And if they don't, they have to leave them there, then come back, and then whoever, it might be the same deputy, John might send, whoever might send another one. I don't know, but it's also kind of another aspect of that, too, is it's kind of demoralizing, I think, personally, my personal opinion, for some of our deputies to be like, man, I'm going to have to drive this person all the way to Bolivar. I'm not even in my home county. I'm not doing what I signed up to do. This is not my job.
Well,
and that's disheartening, I know, to some folks, but I think as a state, and I'd be glad, obviously we're going to work on stuff together, and I'd be glad to kind of look into that some more with you, and I think that'll be beneficial to the area.
Well,
sure.
this brings up a question that I have on this, piggybacking on it. I'm going to make a statement first, then the question. Have we not have like a 80 or 90% reduction in mental health hospital beds in like the last 30 or 40 years here in Tennessee?
I'm trying to remember the number.
It's been substantial.
It's a
It was the deinstitutionalization that started in the 1980s or something, with the kind of the advent of a lot more effective psychotropic medications. The theory was that you could maintain folks in the community but not have the expensive hospital with the medication if they would take their medication and use the community mental health system.
So you've actually brought me to my question. With you being a psychologist now for over 30 years, am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Have you noticed though a large uptick in mental illness in these 30 years?
I have in the last, 10 years in particular.
Right.
I think we really had a.
I was trying to be politically correct and say 30, but I mean,
yeah.
We've been doing the last couple of years, but yeah.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was the thing I've noticed is that I have seen as a layperson is that we're having a huge uptick in mental illness. And it doesn't look like the prescription drugs or anything is doing any good. It looks like, if anything, it's made it worse because the people aren't being treated.
Some of these folks don't take their medication as prescribed as well.
And Paige, you can help me out here, but to my understanding, some of these medications have to be fine-tuned over time, right? You can't just get like a base level for some folk. What works for Chris might not work for Kip, or what works for Kip might not work for Lawrence. So there's
nothing's
different.
Gonna work for me.
Well,
I promise you that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not insinuating that anybody here has a mental illness, but
last time we had Paige here, Brandon kept trying to get me on Paige's couch. He thought I needed to be on Paige's couch. I said, "There's no helping me."
You're right. Most of the medications that are used, they take 3 weeks, 6 weeks to really have the basic therapeutic effect, and then they might say, "Well, Kip, I mean, this one's not working as well as we thought. Let's try this." And it's an art.
Sure. Tune it.
And then, as you were saying, Chris, this is so frustrating for me as a mental health professional, is folks start feeling better and they think, well, I don't need to take my medicine anymore. It's like me having a cold. I don't need to take my cold. Well, wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take it, it just quickly will, work its way out of your system, and then you're back where you were. And so we've got these in some locations, and I'm not as well versed as I need to be on this. We have these mobile crisis units.
Yes, we do.
On wheels.
Yes, and that they come to you, come to the jail, come here to make sure and to check on medication, to treat, and that's something we might consider. Look, do we have enough of them? Mm-hmm. Can they transport if need be?
Which, and everybody knows, if you have an emergency, you call 911. Mm-hmm. But not everybody knows that we actually have a 3-number deal you can call for mental health issues, which is 988.
I'll be darned.
So, folks at home, if you know somebody that's having a mental health crisis
call before you dig.
or an issue, call before you dig. So 988 is that for you folks back home. And I think we've tried to do more as a state with the campaign for that, because I'll be honest with you, before I got legislature, I didn't know about that either. So
I got a comment on this, and then I got something good I want to bring up about you. How about that?
Hey, I'm thankful. It's the week to be thankful.
That's true.
Absolutely. Amen.
Number one, I've seen people stop taking their medicine cold turkey, and you can't do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it can have an adverse effect on you. You got to wean yourself off of it.
Right.
And it can get you way out of control. So there's adverse effects to people just trying to play doctor themselves.
Yeah.
But I got something I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
Very proud of you of this. You were the only elected official as a state senator or as anybody, and I've tried to coattail with you about what happened in Chester County.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of you. And as of today, I don't know of any updates unless you know something we don't.
I haven't gotten an update since we had that, and what Chris is referencing. What Chris is referencing is we had a veteran in Henderson, Tennessee, Chester County, who all of a sudden we hear has been gunned down in his home by the FBI.
Yep.
And knew nothing about it.
Yep.
Started hearing a little about it, and I made some inquiries. People started saying, "What do you know about this in your district?" I didn't know anything about it except I'd heard it had happened, so I called our sheriff.
Yep.
Our sheriff there is a great guy, and he told me that they didn't know anything about it until after the fact, and they were asked to come up and set up a perimeter around the house while the FBI basically self-investigated.
So
as to if they had done this correctly.
Oh, so they wanted
the sheriff's office coordinated the scene for the FBI in their own county
after the fact.
All right,
they didn't
let the FBI investigate.
Okay,
the killing.
Okay, go ahead, Senator. Sorry.
No, that's all right. So it sounded outrageous. It was outrageous. Now, I called a trusted person I know there that his father was the sheriff for decades. Has not been the sheriff there for 15 years or so. But he was telling me that this fella certainly was disturbed. I mean, he had gotten in some fights involving some guns in an adjacent county, in McNairy County, had come back, and there was some issues around investigation about child pornography.
Oh, Lord.
But now, that doesn't mean you get killed for that.
Sure.
Well,
I'm not even sure.
But here's the thing, that it's coming out, and I would think, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
I would think if you had a charge level that much that they had proof of, that just to get the FBI's tit out of a ringer, they would have put that out there and let everybody in the public know.
Well,
that.
and if I'm not mistaken, if the FBI graces the great state of Tennessee, especially, it doesn't matter what county it is, they have to let the DA
and
the sheriff know as soon as their hiney hits the county line.
Yeah.
That's
if
right.
I'm not mistaken.
And they may have let the DA know, but they did not let the sheriff know.
Well, that's
a
big issue.
Yeah, because our sheriff was very, very clear about that they were not informed, nor were the city police informed until after the fact, at which time they were asked to try to secure it while they basically investigated and cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And it's still troublesome.
Chris,
We've got people who try to call into the radio station, and it's sometimes better to do it through our cell phone.
Yeah.
And I've got Dave Vance on the phone. Wants to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you know Dave?
That name is familiar, but I'm drawing a blank.
He's a good American.
Good American.
American.
Somebody you'd like to rub shoulders with.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sure you've probably seen where the AG is joining a bunch of other AGs to sue, to ask the federal government, to ask the courts to allow, to show support for the bill that would allow states to enforce federal immigration law. Or have you seen that? I think it's House Bill 1137.
I apologize, Dave. I don't think I've seen that. House Bill 1137. We'll look it up here and see what we see here.
Kip's pulling it up.
My point is that the AG, along with a bunch of other AGs, are asking to allow to be able to enforce federal law, since when it comes to immigration, obviously this is a Fed-led invasion, and they don't have any plans of stopping it. So instead of just doing what we need to do, we're going to go grovel and see if the federal government will let us do that, but that's another issue. My big question for you is, I don't know if the AG knows or not. I know the governor does because he signed the bill. A bill that I'm 95% sure you voted for in 2022 and if I'm wrong, I'll apologize, but I'm pretty sure you voted for the workforce expansion bill by Shane Reeves. And of course, it had a Democrat sponsor in the House, which tells you right there it was a bipartisan of doing us over bipartisanly. So anyway, the bottom line is this bill would allow illegal aliens to get professional and commercial licenses in Tennessee. And they talk specifically about the DACA, but DACA, you had to be illegal to qualify for DACA.
That's correct.
So, am I correct that you did vote for that bill?
What bill number?
What's the bill number, brother?
Because 1137.
Senate Bill 2464 by Shane Reeves. This was in April of 22. It's called the Workforce Expansion Bill. And if I lose you, I'll call back. I'm on the road, so it's spotty here.
Well, I remember something about the debate about that, and if it's one I'm thinking about, I voted for it. The one that I'm thinking about was that these were people that were here. These were people that were already in Tennessee-based educational programs, were here. They were not illegal, but they were not citizens, and they were obtaining licenses to perform services, everything from nurse practitioner to plumber and whatnot, to work legally. And that's what I remember. But I would have to go back and research that. I apologize. I don't. We vote on hundreds of bills, and I apologize if I don't recall the detail of that one.
And a lot of times too, and also
regardless of what they were doing, they were illegal aliens. The DACA kids, if you recall, were the ones that Obama waved the wand on and said they could come over.
What was the
They have no legal status. They are illegal aliens.
264.
And I think Shane Reeves tried to say on the Senate floor that they had a lawful presence, which is one of the many categories of people that are over here with an undetermined status, but they did not. They were in fact illegal. They had to be illegal to qualify for DACA. So the thought that they're over here and they're doing X, Y, or Z, which by the way was commercial and professional, so they could be doctors, they could be lawyers.
Right.
Wouldn't be any way to stop them. I don't know why we would incentivize illegal aliens.
Well, I think, I'm just talking with a bit of a foggy recollection, but this was also to staff positions and where we were far under staff. If you remember, this is back at the time when we're just trying to come out of COVID. There are extraordinary numbers of vacant positions that we've got to have workers for, and I just think that was part of the conversation. But again, I apologize not knowing enough of the detail. I'd have to go again research that to see the debate.
Dave? Can you tell us what those numbers are again, brother? I'm trying to.
I think it's Senate Bill 2464 would have been from 2022. Well, regardless of the situation, I mean, two things here. Number one, they're still illegals, and we shouldn't incentivize illegals. Number two, there's actually a federal law that we violated by doing that. There's actually a couple. And I don't have the documents right in front of me, the numbers. But the federal government, and I got my issues with the federal government, and we can talk about that some other time, but they set the standard in terms of what is a legal alien and all the different classes. The Congress sets it, okay? Well, they also get to determine what a public benefit is. And several years ago, they passed a law that said, okay, states, and things like in-state tuition and professional and commercial licenses, those are public benefits, and they didn't want states to give those to illegal aliens. But they said, if you insist on doing that, you have to be perfectly clear that they are, in fact, illegal aliens so that your citizens know. But that's not what this law did. This law said commercial and professional licenses are no longer a public benefit, a right of citizenship within your state. So they can't. That's a violation of the federal law. If you're going to do it, you got to be out front and open. Hey, we want to support these illegal aliens, so your citizens can weigh in on that. And it doesn't really matter what the economic situation was. That's not justification for incentivizing illegal immigration, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thanks for calling in. I'm sorry we don't know more to say right now, but appreciate your vigilance in bringing that up.
Well, I'll ask you one last question then. If you get the opportunity to repeal that, will you repeal it?
Well, I've got to look at it before I say if I'll repeal it or not. I'm not sure that you're characterizing it correctly, so it's hard for me to say what I would do before I go back and look at it.
Okay, assuming I'm correct and they are in fact illegal, and we did in fact violate state law, will you repeal it?
I never assume anything. That makes an ass out of you and me, just like the word says. I won't go there.
So I guess we'll see. The other thing that I will say is, the governor knows this bill exists. He knows it's a problem, yet he's got the AG out there looking like a hypocrite because he should be starting in Tennessee enforcing the federal law here on immigration before he worries about what they're doing. I mean, hey, I'm all for us our state should stop groveling before the federal government and just start shipping these people out of here. Stop allowing them to do anything.
Well, and that's what's happening. They're going to Chicago, New York, California, and now they're the ones complaining to Biden. So that's working.
Yeah, we just hope
Hey, Dave,
come here.
thanks, and let's give Kip and Paige a chance and let them look in it, and they'll let us know, brother.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
And so I tried to look at some of those, and I
Couldn't
some
find
of the
them.
numbers were I'd have to
It's
have
hard to, you
I
can't keep every bill in front of you and everything you ever vote on. I've been there, done that.
Yeah,
so.
you can't. And I remember reading something on that before. And there is something there where it gave, the DACA's ability to work in this state, with a professional license. But
he is correct that Senator Reeves did bring that bill.
I couldn't.
We'd have to look it up.
One of the things, as best I recall, too, now that we're talking, is that we were educating these students. The students were enrolled legally in our universities. We were educating them to get the training to do this, and then we were saying, but we're not going to give you a license to do it.
No, I think it allowed the license, though. I really do.
We'll have to check it out.
We'll just have to look in it. We could sit here, it woulda, coulda, shoulda, sort of speak.
No, but we're
We're running out of time. There's one
we're
other thing that it's really, when we're talking about Second Amendment.
Shout out to Strikers.
Shout out to Strikers.
Shout out to Strikers Steakhouse. Get you something to eat. Shout out to Strikers. Go ahead.
You're trying to say if you want something
Just
good,
real
go
quick.
to Strikers.
If you want something good, you had something good, go to Strikers. Strikers Steakhouse.
Couple of quick points. I want to give a shout out. Of course, you mentioned your sons over in Anderson County, Oak Ridge. Mm-hmm. Giles County is one of the only teams from the mid-state that's in the fourth round before the final round of playoffs, and we got to play Alcoa over in Blount County Friday night.
Oh, man.
Got a long ride. I'll tell you, the only team left in my Senate district is Haywood County.
Yes, sir.
And they're playing Friday night, and I'm going to be there against Pearl Cone up in.
Oh, man.
And they're probably going to get whooped pretty good, but
They never know.
we're going to show up.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But what I was just going to tell you real quick that I want to mention is the bill that Chris Todd, and I really appreciate, I know Lawrence does too, you as senators, only we're going to take up 3 bills, and y'all stuck to your guns. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Lawrence.
But what is happening is Chris Todd had this bill for gun-free zones, and I hope we get this going.
Okay. I hadn't seen that, but I will look at that.
So I want to ask you a question on this because, like Chris says, we're very big on the Second Amendment here. And real quick, why are we big on Second Amendment? Because if you go look at history will tell you that over 200 million people in the 20th century alone were murdered in different countries, whether it was Germany, Russia, China. We can keep going down the road because of the taking of weapons.
Yep.
Okay.
Venezuela.
So we had, and Kip was the ringleader on this too in the House, where we were going to get long guns be able to carry long guns.
Chris Todd, Rusty Grills, myself, several
Yes.
others. Yep.
And then obviously because of the Covenant shooting, it got put
Kinda got
on
shut down
yeah,
for
shut
the
down.
back burner.
But I'm going to tell you something. We're only one of 4 states that you can't
I
do
remember
that
you
with.
told me that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me it's important, and I'll tell you why it's important, because I don't want to be put in with New York and New Jersey, or I think maybe New York and California.
No, it's New
No,
York,
it's
New
New
Jersey,
York,
Oh,
New
okay.
Jersey.
and Florida and
and
Tennessee.
Florida. Well, I wasn't going to mention
Tennessee.
Florida, but you know
We got to mention Florida.
Yeah, we
Go
got to
ahead.
mention Florida, but anyway, especially in the light of the Bruin SCOTUS decision in 2022, what can you do in the Senate? Because I know Kip's getting it taken care of in the House. What can you do in the Senate to help bring this out where we can have a true constitutional carry in our state
Regarding
Governor Lee,
long guns, of
I'm
course.
long guns.
For long guns, yeah.
I know one of my colleagues is a sponsor of that. I'm trying to remember.
Stevens.
Yeah, it's John Stevens from up in Northwest Tennessee, and he's a very thoughtful attorney, believe it or not. And so I mean, John and I serve on finance committee together, and so I'm eager to get back with John and see if he's ready to advance it, because I guess it's still alive.
Yeah.
All the bills are still alive that weren't just defeated.
Right.
So when we get back up there, I'm assuming he has it and is ready to try to advance it. So
Well, I tell you, to me, it's important. And, there's going to be people that'll say, well, long guns, the AR-15. Everybody wants to go back to the AR-15. But if you look at the last time these things have been, the CDC and our government has put it out, there was only, and I shouldn't say only, but 447 murders were with a long gun, not just an AR-15, but only 447. The vast majority are handguns.
Yep.
So why is Tennessee not allowed? I'm not allowed legally to have a loaded rifle or a shotgun in my car, and I just find that just
yeah, we used to
unacceptable.
drive to school and park in the school parking lot with loaded guns in the back
Absolutely.
window.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. That was
the-
that was before 1989.
Yes.
You might be a
1989.
The crazy aspect of that is I could be sitting here with 4 loaded handguns strapped around my waist, and it would be perfectly fine.
Right. But see, in 1989 is when Tennessee, it's been very recently that Tennessee did this. You're talking 34 years ago that the Tennessee General Assembly decided, oh, well, you shouldn't have long guns to carry.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to go back and see that debate and what precipitated it. There must have been something to someone led them to say this was an idea. I don't know who that was.
Tennessee was a Democratic state at that
At
point.
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Paige, gun-free zones. Where do these folks look for? These mass shooters, what are they looking for?
Well, on the Senate floor, we had a conversation, and my friend Frank Nicely was very vocal about the lunacy of gun-free zones.
Yes, he was.
And so
Good for him.
they're-
Shout out to Frank.
yeah. Frank's a good one. And so, and interestingly, thinking back to this other debate we had a minute ago about the licenses, I remember Frank was very vocal in favor of that. And it was, Frank is probably one of the more recognized conservative voices in the Senate, been there for 30 years.
Yes, sir.
I was just I know we're running out of time, and if y'all wouldn't mind indulging me for just a second,
please.
I wanted just to shout out to Thanksgiving and how good God has been to us in Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
Even with all the challenges we have, we still, I can't think of any other state I'd rather live in, and I've traveled all of them.
Amen on that.
And, we have been blessed bountifully. We have been blessed with leaders who value conservative principles and conservative fiscal management. That's why we're the lowest tax state per capita, the least indebted state per capita, the one of the very few states that has fully funded pension funds for our teachers, our state employees, that does not operate in with much debt, and who balances our budget, and we go about that way when we have I think a pretty transparent system, and I'm eager to just say thank you for the privilege of serving as our state senator, but thank you for just being blessed by God, and hope everyone will take a moment and just make sure that we express to one another our gratitude and have that attitude, and realize that God truly has shed His grace on Tennessee.
That's right.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, Senator. We appreciate you. One more
Happy Thanksgiving to
shout out to
everybody out
Strikers.
there.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. God bless everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
go get
y'all
some
so
turkey
much.
at Strikers.
That's exactly right.
Yep, that is.